Hello and welcome to Rooted Recovery Stories, brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health's Rooted alumni communities. My name is Patrick Custer and I'm your host. We're so glad you're here and hope you stick around after this brief message. We are live.
Love Facebook.
Who wears a number of
Opportunity to share.
She's one of our own, and has been
They aren't like
parts to your story that I think.
That's awesome. You found healing. You found
until I got so bad.
Can't wait for her to share with you the different aspects of your story and what awesome.
Right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rooted Recovery Stories. Again, my name is Patrick Custer, your host, and I'm super excited to introduce to you our guest today, Jaime from Nashville, Tennessee, who is not only a rock star in the field of treatment and recovery, but a good friend of mine. And I don't know how much more I could do an introduction for her. Other than that, I could go on and on. But with that, Jaime, thanks for being here. I'm so glad to have you on today.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm glad to be here. Happy to tell my story anytime I'm asked.
Awesome.
So,
well, I won't take up any more time. Let's get to it. Tell us about yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'm Jaime. I'm a recovering drug addict, and I've been sober since August 1st of 2008. Just a little bit of background for me. I had an awesome family, very loving, supportive. I'm not a victim of circumstance. And I probably as early as I can remember, I was the kind of kid that liked to stir stuff up. I was the type of kid that they were like, you can't, don't press this red button. And I'm going to obsess and do whatever I can to press that red button.
Uh-huh.
So I think I'm just wired like that, like ever since an early age, before alcohol and drugs ever came into my life. But I had, a lot of friends, great family, a lot of fun in childhood. And I think for me, I was always looking for something. I liked getting in trouble. I don't know what that says. It was like that rush. So I was looking for that rush. And so probably around age 13, I think, for no reason, I chugged a bottle of wine with my friend. And I remember I had such a headache. And I was like, that was awesome. Let's do it again, because I love that rush. And I also knew, like, you're not supposed to do this. Again, it made me really want to do that. I just had that, like, urge inside me that's like, I'm not supposed to, then I definitely want to.
Uh-huh.
And I'm always wired like that. So anyway, I think for me, I was in a lot of sports in high school. I had a lot of friends. I was most outgoing for my senior class, just a lot of fun, a lot of friends. And I think for me, even after I drank at, 13, drank the bottle of wine for no reason, it was just that I was always looking to get into something. And so probably 14 when I started high school. And again, I was in sports, had a lot of friends, and we started drinking, because that's what you did, I thought, sneaking out, that kind of stuff. And for me, I never had a period of like maintaining it. For me, it was very, like, I never had control from the beginning. And it started with, underage drinking. And probably halfway through my freshman year, I got arrested for underage drinking, and I remember I was so ashamed, and I was like, oh, well, I can't drink because I'm underage and they're going to catch me. So I'm just going to smoke weed, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
My solution, because I was like, the cops can't control me. I don't know. I thought that I was like invincible and this is what young people did. And you only get to live once, and I was going to have fun. And so I started smoking weed daily, every day. And I was never ever the person that would turn anything down. So I always, from the minute I just did any substance, I was like, yes, this is it, and so I was smoking pot daily all the time. And you can see too, if you look back, on like my grades or any of that, it just, everything they say, it clearly starts to slip. I was in honor society, and then I dropped out of that, and everything that they say, I think was evidenced by what, how I was living. But, for me, I just always wanted to party, and I didn't have I was so, and I used to think like, I'm just living in the moment, but for me, I really didn't have any concept of like consequences or anything like that. And no long-term, it was just like, let's make the best of this moment right now. And that's what I thought. So I think, with the pot, that was an everyday thing. And I thought I found a loophole because I can't get arrested for underage drinking if I'm smoking weed. And then I think, with those type of friends, that type of lifestyle, before I knew it, that was in my high school, at least, prescription pills were a thing. And I mean, same thing, everything I tried, the first time I tried one, I was like, I love it. This is awesome. And so that's what I started doing. And I had so many, bad decisions throughout this whole time. And I think, like I said, I had a really supportive family, and, I would be grounded, or, they would try to kind of contain me, but then I'd sneak out or do something else because I was like, you can't stop me. So that was kind of how my high school or early using went, I guess. And, my mom was really she thought it was kind of like my friends or, my situation. So she was doing all this work as like the college search, or, into like this private, school that's going to straighten you out. And by the time I graduated high school, I tried almost most drugs, and so I started doing cocaine. And for me too, I didn't even really just like cocaine. Like, someone showed me how to freebase it, and I was like, this is awesome. And it was like with everything, I wanted to take it to the extreme. And so I think, then in high school, I was using pills all the time, pot all the time, cocaine anytime we could get it. Also, mushrooms, anything like that, just as much as I could, whenever I could. And it was fun. I told myself. And, for so many years I didn't drink because I was like, that equals me getting arrested. And then I think I was 18 or almost 18, and we were at Summerfest from Milwaukee, and a bunch of us went out and we were drinking, and I got an underage drinking ticket again, right before I turned 18. And so, I mean, looking back on my story, when I first got sober, I used to think like, well, I'm not an alcoholic, and I'll get into that. But looking back on my story, it doesn't matter what the substance is. I wanted everything all the time. So anyway, I went off to a small private school in middle of nowhere, Indiana. And it was, for me, like, I was looking, when we toured these schools, I was looking for, where are the parties? Do these people look like they get high? And that's like the only thing that I was looking for. And so, and like I said, my mom, my family should try and kind of contain me. She did a lot of work, and she was definitely an enabler. And they all were, because they wanted to help me get out of this, situation. And so I went away to school, and I mean, immediately I thought in my head, it was going to be like Animal House. I was like, we're going to party all the time. Like I did. And I got arrested instead all the time, because apparently I went to a dry university, and they didn't I was just blatant about it, because I was like, this is what college people do. I'm here for the party. It was a pretty expensive party looking back, but I was like, you only live once. And so throughout all of this, I think the kind of piece in my is, there's always I would always, hang out with people that I knew used drugs, or that could get me connected to drugs or anything like that. Like I wanted to go, with the people that partied and had the hardest drugs, and I'd conveniently end up in relationships with them, or, obviously, oh, he's the love of my life,
Yeah.
Whatever I needed to tell myself, because that's what, I wanted that next high, and it didn't matter what it was. And there were so many things I did. Like when I was in college, I think I made it about 2 years before I, inevitably, I think I got kicked out, probably. So I have some fun stories of that. But I think for me, I'm using every day. I got arrested, I don't know, maybe 5 times. And I was like, oh, these assholes, and that's how my thought was like, can you believe this college, I can't believe I went here. And I think too, at this point, I was still so, like, I had no idea that it was me. And I think I still thought like I could stop anytime, but I just didn't want to. And so I think this part gets kind of blurry as far as like my timeline. But I think, the main thing is I was in, a relationship, and, the grades were dropping, all that stuff. I was in a relationship. I think at this time I got introduced to heroin and crack. And side note, for me, I had like this horrible needle phobia, and I was found, of course, at a frat party or something. I found some guy that was like this weird old man hanging out at the college campus. So naturally I thought I want to be his friend, and he introduced me to crack, because obviously
there you go.
An adult at a college party is, when you should hang out with. So anyway, and that's he introduced me to crack. He's like, you can't shoot up, no problem. I'm a chef. Let me cook this up for you. And I think that took me down pretty quickly, and there's a lot of like, anytime I could get acid, anything like that. I did that all the time. I was, driving around campus. I love tripping, would do that all the time. But I think for me, looking at it, kind of the main ones were heroin and crack, that kind of took me to my bottom the most. So I think around the time I got kicked out of college, like I said, I've been arrested like 5 times. I was on probation with the school, in trouble with the law, lots of issues there. And I ended up, I think they found like a gun in my trunk and drugs and all this stuff. And I withdrew from school, and I stayed in like this trailer just using for like a few weeks. And then I drove home to my parents' house. Because at this point they still let me into my mom's house. So anyway, it was just it escalated pretty quickly at that point, or after that. Again, I said there was never a time where it was like, I got this, I was, so I moved back home. And at this point, I was, I think, trying to decide what I wanted to do. I went back to school in Wisconsin, but again, nothing changed inside of me. It was just a new situation. Same me, same priorities, same, let's party, and that's kind of how it was for me. And I just couldn't, no matter what, stopping using, I couldn't picture my life without it. And no matter what I did, I was never willing to stop. And, I think the consequences got worse, and I think I withdrew from the second university and finally went to my first treatment. Part of it was court ordered, which was probably a big part of why I went. But the other part was there were clear consequences in my life, and I didn't know what to do. So I went, but I was an asshole the whole treatment. I almost got kicked out. I was clearly not ready. And I made it through the first 30 days, and then I started using when I made it to their step down program, going back to the house, like immediately. I mean, I think my first AA meeting, I think I was 19 or 20 at this point. In my first meeting, I was like, I am still going to drink on my 21st birthday. And I told everybody that, and they're like, keep coming back, and I was like, I'm not gonna, because you guys are a bunch of weird alcoholics. And I'm just, this is what we do. I'm 19, 20. This is what we do. So anyway, I got kicked out of that, or, obviously I used, and I got kicked out of that treatment center. I ended up going to jail, and that was 5 days in jail. And, at this point too, my mom got me a really good lawyer. She was doing whatever she could to make sure that, her baby was okay, and so I think, all of that happened, and I can't even remember what happened next, but I think throughout this time, I had been in and out of a few different treatments, and, I was put on medication management or done with all these different things to try and help me. But the whole time, I never once surrendered. I never once admitted man, I can't use anything. I had all these excuses. And here's why I was doing this, or here's why. I mean, when I was in college, if I had a big test, I would say okay, this is perfect. I've got to smoke crack because I really need to study. So obviously, and I was serious.
Right.
I was like,
you believe it.
Yeah. And it really made good sense. And I was like, or then I would bring the crack to the, with me. Cause I was like, during a test, because I'm like, I need to take this test in the same state that I was studying. So I do well. And that's what I told myself, and that's what I believed, and that's what I did. And so it was just, I don't know how it happened. Like I said, it's pretty blurry, and there's a lot of, consequences and issues within this time period. So, for me, I think the main thing was it never got better. It was continually getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, after going to enough treatments, my parents were, attending enough family sessions, that they were getting better at boundaries, and I think for me, it was getting to the point where I was burning some bridges. I didn't have a lot of options, but I still couldn't stop getting high. So, it got to the point kind of at the end where, in and out of treatment, I'm not working anymore. And I'm obviously the love of my life at this time, my current relationship, he taught me how to steal. And so what we were doing is we would go rob, like Walmart or Target.
Clarify the love of your life at that time.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So this is like the love of my life. And I met him in treatment.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting to me because throughout all this treatment and this using and this back and forth, I would continually meet people that weren't serious about recovery. And then when I finally surrendered and got sober and actually into recovery, I've never had that experience. So, it's just kind of about what you put out into the universe. So anyway, he taught me, we used to steal a bunch of DVDs from all these different stores. I mean, we had this whole system. We would change the license plate, and we had it set up for every store, and then we would go sell them back. And we were selling drugs at this point too, living in a motel. So it was just, at this point I was, and just to back up to my mother who helped raise me, she was wonderful, the biggest enabler, and the most wonderful woman. So she had died right after my 21st birthday. And I think after that, I really spiraled, and I didn't it just completely, I wasn't doing well to begin with, but I was completely off the rails. So pretty much homeless, living out of my car, families, kind of cut me off, which saved my life. And I think one of the last times I went to treatment, my mom, she said, "We're not doing this again." And I was like, yeah, sure, we're not, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I think she was serious. And for me, I really hit bottom, and I kind of lost everything. My family was worried about me. I would, I had really hit that place of desperation, which is such a gift, because, I'm 21, living homeless in this motel, and I can't go a few hours without getting sick. And, like I said, I had everything kind of set up for me because I had one focus, and it was that next rush, that next high. So, I had had some time in the program, locally, and I did know some people that were in recovery. And the guy that I was with at the time got arrested because we were stealing, and that's illegal. And he got arrested. I'm by myself, burnt bridges. I crawl back to my mom's house, and I'm like, I'm ready. I'm going to die if I don't do something, and I think she knew that I was serious. I signed my car over to her. I said, I'll do whatever I want, or whatever you want me to do. And she, at that point, I contacted some of the people that I was in recovery with, and they recommended a place in Nashville. So, and I was ready. I had nothing to hold on to. I was completely done. And I knew, because everything that they said, when I was first going to meetings, everything they said came true. You'll lose relationships, you'll do that, whatever it is, it came true. And so eventually I, had that desperation. I was willing to do anything. And I knew that if I kept going, I would die. I mean, I knew it. So, 21, nothing to my name. I was I'm done. So we left for Nashville the next day. And luckily, because they had changed the locks, but luckily my mom was like, "This is it. Let's do it." And which I think she had said she wouldn't, but she saved my life, with everything she had. So we leave for Nashville, and I'm completely, she's serious. And I know that at this point I don't have anything else. So, I go through treatment. I remember too, when I was in treatment last time,
you just real quick.
Yeah.
For when you talk about what your mom did, saving your life, I know what you meant, but just to clarify for any parents that are out there watching.
Yeah.
And we're talking about mama, who's the biggest enabler for you. When we look at how parents love us through addiction, the general instinct is to do everything wrong. Every instinct a parent has is to love us to death. And
Yes.
that's exactly what your mom was doing, because loving an addict the proper way is the exact opposite of what it feels like it should be. It's
100%.
saying no. It's not enabling anything that makes you comfortable when you're doing what you're doing. It's, so when you're talking about everything your mom did, you're saying at this point, when she had a wake up call and said, I'm saying no, I'm putting my foot down, you're getting your butt in treatment, not contributing anymore to any of your tomfoolery or whatever. Right.
Yes.
So
100%.
Anyway,
so,
I wanted to point that out because I get all the time parents that are, are hearing these stories and everything. And I couldn't send more of a resounding message, listen to what Jamie's saying right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's amazing. And that's the thing too. And it's funny because, and she and I talk about this too, because she's a neuropsychologist. She understands addiction on paper, all of this stuff. Yet she continued to rescue me.
Wow.
Whether it was with legal help or with housing or getting me into another treatment. She did this for so long and I didn't feel the weight of my consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go right back out and do the same thing. And so I think, when she finally, and she told me, because we've talked about it since, that it was the hardest thing she ever had to do. But she said, I'm not helping you anymore. I'm not, you're done. They changed the locks on my house. And I knew that she was serious because not only did she set that boundary, but she didn't, she held it. And which I think is the hardest thing. So anyway, you're right. And I think what she did is amazing. I tell her that all the time. And she tells me that was the hardest thing that she's ever had to do. Because you don't know if you're going to get the call that your child has died. But it's just invaluable. And I literally think that's why I'm alive today. Yep. So no, thank you because that is huge, and she's, it was great. And even when I got sober, in Nashville, and I took all the suggestions, I went to a halfway house, in Nashville, and I knew, cause she was like, good luck, she's not paying this time. And I was serious. I didn't want her to, because I was serious and I was going to do what I needed to do. But I think with that, so I turned 22 in treatment, I was a big fear for me of getting sober was like, what about all this fun, cause I still want to have fun. I still want to party all the time. And I thought that getting sober, that I wouldn't be able to do that. And it's completely wrong. I didn't get sober to be miserable. I got my life back and so much more, which I'll kind of talk about. But I think a big thing is recovery is so fun. I can do whatever I want today, because I'm free, but not to skip ahead too much. I did the sober living for 6 months. I got a job at Kroger and I took the bus. And it was like, I did whatever, I was willing. I got rides to meetings. I didn't have a car for the first year. So it was just a lot of willingness. And I asked for help.
Talk about just for a second how I think in some ways you and I both had a similar upbringing in that it was a little bit privileged in some way. Like we were taken care of, right? But getting to a point where when it came to being in recovery, going through treatment and having to do the whole sober living bus, all the things you just named, it sounds so harsh, but so necessary.
It was so necessary. It was, I didn't know how to make a bed. I knew how to order pizza, but I didn't know how to do anything else. And so I learned really simple life skills, for the first time in my life, I paid bills on time, all of that kind of stuff. And so, for me, it was just those little things. And I think the most important thing for me is being in that, sober living and not having a car and not having this stuff is I learned how to ask for help. And rely on women in the program, because I never did that before. It was just, I would find the shady person in the corner that's nodding out and I'm like, will you sponsor me? And that's not what you're supposed to do, So this time I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm in it. And I told my counselor when I was in treatment, I was like, I'm ready. I was like, I'll be working here one day. And she was like, okay, Jamie, keep coming back. And I was like, I was like, I will come back because I am not leaving. I was like that, no one's going to take this. I'm going to do whatever is suggested.
Yep.
And I used to think too, it's so weird. Like I used to think that like I would do all this work and get sober. Like I literally didn't think it was possible for me to not use. And I thought that even if I like got sober and I'm going to meetings, doing all this stuff, I had like this irrational fear that I would be like on my way home from a meeting, you know, with my big book in my hand, just minding my own business. And then like someone's gonna like tackle me on the street and like shove a pill up my nose. I don't know. I was like, there's no way I'll be able to do this. Like whatever. I just thought pour alcohol down my throat. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I didn't really buy all the stuff that they were saying in treatment about like, you know, it's these 12 steps. And I was like, that's the solution. You know, like I want to see a blueprint before I commit to that. I don't see how it's going to work. But it got to a point when I got desperate enough and knew that every single thing I did, none of my stuff worked. And when I knew that, like deep within my soul, I was like, I don't care if they told me to stand on my head. What I'm doing doesn't work unless all of these people are pretty good actors. Like there's something to this. So I'm going to do it. And I think that's the point I was at is I didn't understand how recovery worked, but I didn't care, you know, because I was so desperate and I knew I was going to die. And so I did, you know, I got on my knees, I did all this stuff and I was like, this is stupid, but I have no other option. And then I don't know if it was maybe around my 2-year mark. I can't really pinpoint a time. And I think in early recovery, I thought like, you know what, maybe I can do this. I can stay sober, but never in a million years did I think that I would lose the desire to use. And that's to me where it's like, you know, I don't know if you want to call it a spiritual awakening or whatever, but that's to me where it was like the first huge moment where I'm like, this is true. I'm free. You know, I don't have to get high. You know, I don't have to do it. And not only do I not have to, I no longer want to. And I think that for me is kind of when everything changed. So, you know, and what did I do? I did what they told me to do. You know, it's not like, oh, how did Jamie do that? Like I did everything wrong except for pick up and use. You know, that's the one thing I haven't done in recovery, but I did a lot of stuff wrong. I mean, I didn't just completely lose my nature as a person. You know, right. I'm still impulsive. I'm still, you know, there's all this stuff that I'm working through. But I think for me, the main thing.
Still love to press the button that says, don't press this button.
I'm going to press it, Patrick. No, you know, for me, it's just different because it's like, it's not a harmful button anymore. You know, it's not going to hurt me or others. You know, and I haven't actually had that urge in a while because I'm happy. And I think that's the other piece is I'm fulfilled. Yeah. And so I think all of this work that I did, you know, I went to therapy. I took the suggestions, you know, I got this core group of women, this community. I talked to people that, you know, were doing recovery and that had clean time and that were, you know, doing the stuff. And that's who I spent my time with. So I no longer would go for like the shady person in the back. You know, it's just my intention shifted. And so did the people that I made my fellowship in my community. So, you know, and with that, I got involved. You know, I did everything that I could do. And I've always been like that. Like I always want to get involved and I love activities. So activities.
That's one of the things I love about you, Jamie. Gives you
yeah, you also love activities.
I do. Yeah.
Even if you leave the car straight over, make me walk back to it. But I think my first Halloween, you know, like these are the things that I was like, how am I going to do this sober? You know, and that's like my first Halloween. I went to this AA meeting, but I dressed up as like a ostrich rider that blows up and it has like an inflatable thing. And there was like all these old men in there. But I was like, I'm celebrating Halloween sober. And it was fun. Like everybody laughed. It didn't matter. I had a Halloween party to go to, but I went to a meeting and I dressed up because I'm going to celebrate my favorite holiday. And then just stuff like that. You know, I stood up in one of my best friend from high school's wedding and they all did huge shots of like Jaeger and mine was just Red Bull and had this big red straw. And I remember that wedding, I had more fun than I ever had at a wedding. You know, I danced more than I ever did. And, you know, I remember it all. I'm guilty the next day. And there's no, we can't find Jamie for 3 days. There's none of that. You know, it's just, I'm home. My relationships are good. You know, I remember one of my best friends when I had 2 years sober, because when I first got sober, you know, with reason, my mom was kind of, you know, you prove it to me. You know, she had trusted me in the past and due to my pattern, it was the same thing. And so I think she was kind of hesitant, to step back in and start that relationship. There's a lot of that trust that I needed to build back up. And I couldn't do it with words. I'd been doing that for years. I needed to do it with action, and so the main thing, I think, once she saw me and once the action spoke for itself, she my friend, Jamie, took me to Starbucks, got me out of bed, was like, let's go. And I had 2 years. Now, my mom is in Wisconsin, and I showed up at Starbucks, and my mom flew down. I had no idea, coordinated it with my best friend, and like my family's there and a bunch of my good friends. And they surprised me for my 2 years, and I remember it's like little things like that where it's just so, first of all, everything about this makes it worth it. Little things like that. And I think, the start of my recovery, I got so, and I was like, let's do this, because I was so scared. I had no other option. And then at first I stayed sober, and I did all this because I was so terrified of going back to that living hell. But then it shifted for me. And I don't know where, I can't pinpoint a time, but sometime in my recovery, it shifted. And I stay sober today because my life is amazing. And I'm so excited for what gifts are going to be presented in the future. And this is the part of my story too, where you might have to tell me to shut up, because I get so excited, because recovery, it's not anything like I thought it was going to be.
Right.
I have everything that I ever wanted and more. I think if I would have, devised here's what my goal is for myself at, age 34 or whatever, I would have said certain things, and I would have sold myself short, because it's just not something you can plan. And so, when people are kind of like, how'd you do it? Or, any of that. And it's like, dude, I didn't pick up no matter what. And that's the key, because as soon as I pick up, then I lose my power of choice. Then I'm not free anymore, because as soon as that's back in my body, then I don't have that choice. And so I think today I am free. I do have the power of choice. Recovery is not just about, I'm not just jonesing at my house every day, staying away from stuff. It's I'm living, I'm going to concerts, I'm talking to people. I can do whatever I want to do.
Going to concerts except for 2020.
Yeah. Well,
Pat, too soon of a joke. So my bad, y'all.
A good joke. Yeah. I was going to concerts pre-COVID, but I know that I'll go to concerts again.
Yeah.
One day. Actually, I don't even want to. Yeah. Yeah. But, I think for me, it's this freedom and this life is so worth it. And I think I never in a million years thought that this would be possible for me, and I think it is. It's possible for anybody, and it's so simple. And I think just doing the things that they suggest, I think, in making that decision and then taking the action that follows up with it, and the stuff that results from that is truly amazing. So it's thing every day, and I get to work at an amazing treatment program today, and I get to help people that are also struggling, and that makes it all worth it, because I know what they're going through, but I also know what can kind of come on the other side of that. I know that there's hope, and that it's so much better than they can even ever imagine. Yeah. And that's what I'm passionate about today, is showing other people that I know you're struggling. I know what it feels like, this desperation, but you don't have to stay there.
That's right. What kind of one final thought I wanted to ask you about is, what would you say to the person that's in your shoes, similar to, when you were trying those, like that first and second time before you would hit your bottom and mom said no, finally, like when you were trying. Yeah, when you were trying, but because you felt like you still had time left, you felt like you still had options, you didn't need to, right? But what would you say to that person that may be watching right now? Consequences are hitting them, but they think they still have time. They think they still have choices. Whatever. Sure. What would
I think for me, the main thing is what do you have to lose? Because even though I didn't really give it a try, at first I was trying to avoid consequences or, get privileges. I agreed to go to treatment, stay out of whatever. I think one of the main things for me is, it's like, what are you holding on to? I used to say that I'm using because I want to have fun. I want to go party. But the fact is, it had stopped being fun a long time ago. It wasn't fun anymore. And I think anybody in that place where they're contemplating, or if they've been to treatment a few times or any of that, there's a reason that you're there. You don't just pop into treatment, on a winning streak. You're there because there's something going on. And so really look at, your life. Because to me, it's not just about the drugs or the alcohol. that was our solution to a problem that's bigger than that. And that solution no longer works. We're finding ourselves like in a situation where we need help. And so it's not about, it's about why I'm not okay in my own skin, why I'm reaching for something to change the way I feel. And that's the key. So it doesn't matter like if you never been or any of that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, and what I would tell anybody, are you happy with your life right now? Are you, is something else controlling you? And are you ready to make a change? Because that's the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter when, there's not a, here's your bottom, the elevator stops whenever you want to get off. And recovery can be for anybody, whether you had 20 treatments or 1 treatment, no treatments, it doesn't matter. This is free, and it's this gift for anybody. So I think for me, it's there's no one size fits all. It's, are you ready to do something different? Do you want to be happy?
That's right. That's so true. Well, wow. Thanks so much for sharing. This is my second time to hear your story, and it's still just as much of a blessing as the first time. And I'm glad I got to hear it in this setting. For those of you who don't know, Jaime works, like she mentioned earlier, for her full-time job, helping to change lives at a wonderful program in Nashville called the Nashville Recovery Center. And we at Promises just love everybody there because you all are doing such wonderful work. And, all of you in leadership there have such great hearts, and, we share the same passion and drive to change lives every day. So if anybody is watching and you or your family member needs help, feel free to access the information at the bottom of your screen, or you can also call the Nashville Recovery Center. They've got wonderful programs, and they also host a number of recovery meetings that you can take part in if you live in the Nashville, Middle Tennessee area. So thanks again, Jaime, and thanks to everybody for watching and sticking with us through this broadcast. The last thing I'll say is please be kind to one another and love each other and take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Patrick, so much for this opportunity. And I just love your face.
Thank you, Jaime. I love your face too.